Massive crowds have turned out here in central Tehran to protest against Israel's strikes against Iran, but also against the policies of the Trump administration as well. Many of them were chanting death to America, were chanting death to Israel. We saw them burn American flags and burn Israeli flags.
Per the AP, now comes a new chapter in U.S.-Iran relations, whether for the better or the even worse. For nearly half a century, the world has witnessed an enmity for the ages, the threats, the plotting, the poisonous rhetoric between the great Satan of Iranian lore and the axis of evil troublemaker of the Middle East in America's eyes. Now, we have a U.S. president saying, of all things, God bless Iran.
I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin-Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God.
This change of tone, however fleeting, came after the intense U.S. bombing of Iranian nuclear development sites this week, Iran's retaliatory yet restrained attack on a U.S. military base in Qatar, and the tentative ceasefire brokered by the President Donald Trump in the Israel-Iran war. The U.S. attack on 3 targets inflicted serious damage but did not destroy them, a U.S. intelligence report found. Contradicting Trump's assertion that the attacks obliterated Iran's nuclear program, here are some questions and answers about the long history of blood between the two countries. Prefaces by saying we'll comment on this afterwards. Why did Trump offer blessings all around? In the first blush of a ceasefire agreement, even before Israel and Iran appeared to be fully on board, Trump exulted in the achievement. God bless Israel, he posted on social media. God bless Iran, he wished blessings on the Middle East. America and the world, too. When it became clear that all hostilities had not immediately ceased after all, he took to swearing instead. We basically have 2 countries that have been fighting for so long and so hard that they don't know what the F they're doing, he said on camera. In that moment, Trump was especially critical of Israel, the steadfast U.S. ally, for seeming less attached to the pause in fighting than the country that has been shouting death to America for generations and is accused of trying to assassinate him. Why did U.S.-Iran relations sour in the first place? In 2 words, Operation Ajax. We're going to have more than 2 words on this, let's be honest. That was the 1953 coup orchestrated by the CIA with British support that overthrew Iran's democratically elected government and handed power to the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. The Western powers had feared the rise of Soviet influence and the nationalization of Iran's oil industry. Interestingly enough, Pahlavi did eventually nationalize their oil in 1973, and there went U.S. support for them during the revolution. The Shah was a strategic U.S. ally who repaired official relations with Washington, but grievances simmered among Iranians over his autocratic rule and his bowing to America's interests. All of that boiled over in 1979 when the Shah fled the country and the theocratic revolutionaries took control, imposing their own hard line. They maintained the nationalization of their oil and among other changes in policy. How did the Iranian Revolution deepen tensions? Profoundly, on November 4, 1979, with anti-American sentiment at a fever pitch, Iranian students took 66 American diplomats and citizens hostage and held more than 50 of them in captivity for 444 days. It was a humiliating spectacle for the United States and President Jimmy Carter, who ordered a secret rescue mission months into the Iran hostage crisis. In Operation Eagle Claw, 8 Navy helicopters and 6 Air Force transport planes were sent to rendezvous in the Iranian desert. A sandstorm aborted the mission, and 8 service members died when a helicopter crashed into a C-120 refueling plane. Now, the military loves crashing helicopters.
Iran is the heir of a very proud and very ancient civilization. Iran, there's a lot to say about it, but one thing that they do know is the United States and Britain did a lot to undermine Iran's place in the world in the second half of the 20th century. In 1953, which is a right starting point for the current situation, Britain and the U.S. took great offense to a radical idea of the Iranian prime minister at the time named Mossadegh, who said, you know, the oil under our sand is ours. And the British and the Americans said, no, that's ours, and you're never going to get it. And they overthrew Mossadegh and put in a police state. And that police state lasted until 1978.
Diplomatic ties were severed in 1980 and remained broken. Needless to say, this was an embarrassing mission into Iran and pretty much changed our policy towards them militarily for years to come. Just getting into Tehran is difficult enough. What this article fails to mention is what happened literally days ago when, while at the negotiating table, Israel and then the U.S. followed up with attacks on Iran and then demanded they come right back to the negotiating table. Ridiculous. There is no trust between these countries right now, but there is sort of a mutual desire for peace, or at least to not have to do anything. It goes far deeper than that. We've got the assassination of Soleimani by the U.S. You've got what is a long-standing embarrassment, which is essentially Iran's victory in Iraq. Iran-backed forces in Iraq have completely humbled and destroyed U.S. attempts to take control of the country. You've got a number of other sort of engagements. The U.S.'s failure to aid Iraq in the Iran-Iraq war. Again, something this article doesn't mention. The U.S. backed Iraq in the Iran-Iraq war, which saw Iraq using chemical weapons against Iranians and massive amounts of civilian deaths. Terrible. The fact that historically speaking, the past 20, 30 years, destruction of Iran, regime change, attacking them has been just on the minds of so many people in the U.S. military and State Department. They are a huge existential threat to the United States in that region. They've got an extremely powerful and experienced military. Their country has a ton of natural resources. They've got 10% of the world's crude oil sitting under them. The country itself is near impossible to invade, huge mountainous regions. Tehran itself is situated to be perfectly defended, as seen with the rescue mission. We had to resort to, some ridiculous CIA operations, the Argo. The fact that they could potentially possess a nuclear weapon is extremely worrying because, as we've seen with every other country on Earth that possesses a nuclear weapon, the U.S. suddenly decides not to invade them, Bay of Pigs notwithstanding. Iran could very, very realistically tip the balance of power and be the superpower in the Middle East, removing Israel and U.S.-backed Saudi Arabia from a position of power in that region. Whether this would be good or bad, I think a lot of people in the Middle East would be more than happy to not be under the thumb of the U.S. anymore. Some wouldn't. I mean, this is something that I think we as Americans have trouble getting into, just in general, is conceptualizing the Mideast as a complicated political situation. It's not, as some people want to put it, just, radical Muslim Islamic terrorism. I mean, there's multiple different political factions. You've got old school communists in Afghanistan, Iran. Actually, before we even ousted Mossadegh, he was under threat of being removed by communist factions in his country. You've still got those people around. You've got left-wing groups. You've got Sunni, Shiite. You've got different political movements, different brands of Sunni and Shia Muslims. You've got Wahhabism, Wahhabists, who used to be the U.S.'s favorite people until 9/11, basically. You've got just, by and large, especially in Iran, just regular, normal people living their lives. There's footage we can post, we can show you of just generally what these countries are actually like. People go and visit. Actually, around the time of the 2015 nuclear deal, there was a huge bump up in tourism to Iran, which, by the way, yet another issue here is we're acting like Iran has done something wrong by going back to trying to develop nuclear material. Again, there's no proof that they're using it for a weapon, but it's possible. And if they want to, we had our shot. We had our chance to stop them from doing that. The nuclear deal that was set up under the Obama administration, that the Trump administration completely tanked. these people have no reason to trust us, yet it really seems like they're doing their level best to keep World War III from happening. And, you know, broken clock, right twice a day. It seems like Donald Trump seems to be on board with that as well. So hopefully that's where we stay with this issue. Anyway, thanks.
In front of Chicago doors, you get free once you still get yeah, you had to do next the whole time.